In a world scarred by war, Syrian stands at the edge of a ruined battlefield, haunted by the sounds of battle and loss. He remembers the night when his uncontrollable flames took away his closest friend, leading to his unfair exile. As whispers of a new danger fill the air, a spark of hope ignites within him. Syrian wonders if he can reclaim his honor and protect the kingdom that cast him aside, or if his past will forever shadow his future. Syrian stood on the outskirts of the battlefield, the air thick with smoke and the bitter scent of charred earth. He gazed at the remnants of a clash that had left the ground stained with blood and echoes of despair. The sounds of clashing swords and cries of agony haunted him, each note ringing like a bell in the deep silence that followed the chaos. As he looked out over the destruction, memories flooded back. Memories of a night he could never forget. The flames had danced uncontrollably, bright and wild, consuming everything in their path. Among the chaos, his closest friend had fallen, caught in the fiery embrace that Syrian could not control. "It wasn't my fault," he had shouted, but the world had not listened. Instead, they had pointed fingers, accusing him of betrayal. The unjust accusation had led to his exile, a heavy weight on his heart that refused to lift. As he stood there, a flicker of hope ignited within him. Whispers of a new threat rose from the ashes of despair, rumors that hinted at something dark and powerful stirring in the shadows. Could this be the chance he needed to confront his past? The thought both thrilled and terrified him. Would he have the strength to reclaim his honor? The kingdom that had cast him aside now needed him, but could he trust himself to rise to the occasion? "Syrian?" a voice called softly from behind, breaking through the haze of his thoughts. It was a voice filled with concern, but he did not turn to look. Instead, he clenched his fists, holding back the waves of guilt that surged within him. How could he face anyone after what had happened? "Do you ever wonder if you can go back?" he muttered to the wind, his words barely escaping his lips. "Is it even possible to undo the past?" Silence answered him, but in that silence, he felt the weight of his choices. The battlefield lay before him like a mirror, reflecting his own inner turmoil. The question of whether he could protect the kingdom that had turned its back on him lingered in the air, unanswered. As he took a step forward, the memories became clearer. He remembered the laughter shared with his friend, the dreams they had woven together. But that night had changed everything. He could still hear the screams, the crackling of flames as they consumed the hopes and dreams of many. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the wind, hoping somehow, somewhere, his friend could hear him. But the moment was fleeting, and reality crashed back in. The shadows of the past loomed large, threatening to suffocate him. But there was a spark of determination in his chest, a desire to find the truth behind the darkness that had brought him here. He would not let the shadows win. "Perhaps this new threat is what I need," he thought, the flicker of hope growing stronger. "Maybe it is time to face my demons." With a deep breath, Syrian turned away from the battlefield, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but he felt an undeniable pull to discover what lay beyond. Would he find answers? Or would he be met with more pain? "Only one way to find out," he murmured, resolute. The journey would not be easy, but he was willing to take that first step. The whispers of a new threat echoed in his mind, and he knew he could no longer hide from his past. As he walked away from the devastation, a single thought consumed him. Could he truly reclaim his honor? The kingdom might be waiting, but so was the darkness that had shaped his fate. Would he rise to meet it, or would he let it swallow him whole? The questions lingered, unanswered, as he ventured into the unknown. As Syrian traveled through the quiet forest, he felt the weight of his past pressing down on him. The trees stood tall and silent, their leaves whispering secrets he could not grasp. Each step reminded him of the battlefield, of the cries that still haunted him. But he pressed on, driven by a flicker of hope that something greater awaited him. Suddenly, a soft voice broke the stillness. "Are you lost, traveler?" Syrian turned to see a young woman standing a few paces away. Her hair fell in waves around her shoulders, and her eyes sparkled with a mix of curiosity and concern. She wore simple clothing, yet there was an air of strength about her. "I am not lost," he replied, though he felt the lie hang in the air. "Just searching." And the woman stepped closer, her expression softening. "Searching for what? Redemption? Or perhaps a way to escape the shadows of your past?" Syrian was taken aback by her insight, but he found himself drawn to her openness. "I seek both," he confessed. "I carry guilt for what happened to my friend. I thought I could control my flames, but I lost everything." The young woman nodded slowly. "Fire can bring warmth, but it can also destroy. I know this well." Her words stirred something in Syrian. "You too have suffered?" She hesitated, her gaze drifting to the ground. "Yes, my family. They perished in a fire ignited by dark forces. I was left alone, just like you." A bond formed between them in that moment, forged by loss and pain. "I'm sorry," Syrian said softly. "I didn't mean to bring up such memories." "It is all right," she replied, her voice steady. "Talking about it helps. My name is Ayra, by the way." "Syrian," he said, a small smile breaking through his sorrow. "It seems we both carry the weight of the flames." Ayra looked at him, her expression serious. "We can either let our pasts consume us, or use them to drive us forward. What do you choose?" Syrian glanced at the ground, contemplating her words. "I want to reclaim my honor. I want to protect those who were hurt by my fire." Ayra stepped closer, a spark of determination lighting her eyes. "Then we must work together. We both know what it means to lose everything. Perhaps we can find a way to turn our pain into strength." As they talked, Syrian felt emotions stirring within him, feelings he thought long buried beneath guilt and shame. He had always seen fire as a curse, a tool of destruction, but here, in the presence of Ayra, it began to shift in his mind. "How do you find the courage to move on?" he asked, searching her eyes for answers. "You accept what has happened and learn from it," she replied gently. "It is not easy, but it is necessary. I have learned to heal others, and in doing so, I heal myself." "Your compassion is inspiring," Syrian said, a newfound respect blooming within him. "But vengeance, it calls to me. I want to punish those who took everything from me." Ayra's gaze hardened slightly. "Vengeance can lead to a dark path, Syrian. We must seek justice, not revenge. There is a difference." He nodded, feeling the truth in her words. "You are right. I have let anger cloud my judgment. Together, we can find a way to confront those dark forces," Ayra said, her voice filled with resolve. "But we must do it with purpose, not hatred." Syrian took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words settle within him. "I will try. For you. And for those we have lost." They stood in silence for a moment, the forest surrounding them alive with the sounds of nature. In that quiet, Syrian felt a sense of hope growing. He was no longer alone in his journey. With Ayra by his side, he could face the shadows of his past and find a path toward redemption. "Let's keep moving," Ayra said, breaking the silence. "There is much to do, and I sense our journey has only just begun." And with that, they set off together, two souls united by loss, ready to face the unknown ahead. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the remnants of the battlefield. Syrian stood at the edge, the weight of his memories heavy on his heart. The cries of the fallen echoed in his ears, reminders of the night when his uncontrolled flames took everything from him. It was a night of chaos and sorrow, one that he could never forget, As he walked through the ruins, a flicker of understanding began to spark within him. He had spent so long believing that he was the cause of his own tragedy, but now he sensed something deeper at work. There were whispers of a conspiracy, a dark plan that had led to the fire that destroyed his life and claimed his friend. He felt a pull, a need to uncover the truth and confront the enemy that lurked in the shadows. "Syrian, wait!" Ayra called from behind him, her voice laced with concern. She hurried to catch up, her healer's bag bouncing against her side. "You cannot face this alone. What if it is too dangerous?" Turning to her, Syrian could see the worry etched on her face. "I must do this, Ayra. If I do not find out who is truly responsible, I will never find peace. I need to know the truth." Ayra hesitated, her brow furrowed. But what if the truth is more painful than you expect? Sometimes, ignorance can be a blessing. He shook his head, determination burning in his eyes. "I cannot live in darkness any longer. I need to reclaim my honor and protect the kingdom that cast me aside. Besides, I have you by my side." Her expression softened, and she nodded. "Then, let us uncover this truth together." They set off, following a trail of rumors that led them deeper into the heart of the kingdom. Syrian felt a mix of fear and hope as they journeyed. Each step brought him closer to the answers he sought, but it also reminded him of the pain he had endured. As they approached a small village, they met an old man sitting by the roadside. His eyes were clouded but wise, and he regarded them with a mix of curiosity and caution. "What brings you two young souls to this desolate place?" he asked. "We seek the truth about the fires that destroyed our lives," Ayra replied. "Do you know anything of the darkness that caused them?" The old man's gaze sharpened. "Ah, the fire. It was not just a mere accident, my dear. There are forces at work in this kingdom that wish to see it fall. The flames were a distraction, a means to an end." Syrian felt his heart race. "What do you mean? Who is behind this?" "The council," the old man whispered, glancing around as if afraid of being overheard. "They have their own motives, their own desires for power. They will stop at nothing to achieve it, even if it means sacrificing their own people." Ayra's hand gripped Syrian's arm. "We need to confront them," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Yes," Syrian agreed, a fire igniting within him, not of rage, but of purpose. "We will expose their deceit. We cannot let them continue their treachery." As they pressed on, Syrian felt the weight of his past bearing down on him. He was not just fighting against the council, he was battling the self-loathing that had haunted him since that fateful night. The realization struck him that this journey was as much about confronting his own shadows as it was about confronting the true enemies. "Syrian, what weighs on your heart?" Ayra asked gently, sensing his inner turmoil. He paused, taking a deep breath. "I fear that I am still that boy who lost control. What if I cannot face them without losing myself again?" "Then you must remember who you are now," Ayra replied, her voice firm. "You have grown. Your flames can protect, not just destroy. You can use your past as a strength." With her words echoing in his mind, Syrian felt a shift within him. This was not just about revenge, it was about justice and healing. He could face the council, but he had to do it on his own terms. Together, they made their way to the heart of the kingdom, ready to confront the true enemy that had caused so much pain. Syrian knew the battle ahead would be fierce, but he was no longer alone. With Ayra by his side, he felt a sense of hope rekindling within him, a hope that perhaps he could reclaim not only his honor, but also his very self. Syrian stood at the edge of the clearing, feeling the weight of his choices pressing down on him. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the ground. He could hear the distant sounds of battle, but today he felt different. Today he felt a shift within himself. Ayra approached him, her eyes filled with concern. "Are you ready for this?" she asked softly, her voice steady yet gentle. Syrian took a deep breath, glancing at the flickering flames that danced in his mind. "I am," he replied, but he felt a knot tightening in his stomach. "But I do not want to use fire as a weapon. Not anymore." Ayra's gaze softened. "You have learned so much. Choosing compassion is a strength, Syrian. You can lead without causing destruction." He nodded, remembering the pain of his past, the memories of loss and regret that haunted him. "I want to be better. I want to heal, not hurt." Together, they turned toward the gathering crowd of warriors, their faces a mix of determination and uncertainty. Syrian felt the weight of their hopes resting on his shoulders, and he knew he had to inspire them. "Listen to me," Syrian called out, raising his voice so all could hear. "We stand before a great evil, but we do not need to respond with more fire. We must show them that we are stronger together, united by compassion." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some looked doubtful, others hopeful. Ayra stepped forward, her presence a calming force. "Syrian speaks the truth. We can choose to fight with our hearts, not our flames. Together, we can show our enemies that love and healing are more powerful than hatred." Her words struck a chord, and Syrian felt the energy shift. He glanced at Ayra, their bond deepening in that moment. They shared a silent understanding, a connection forged in their shared pain and desire for redemption. As they prepared for battle, Syrian felt a surge of courage. He looked into the eyes of the warriors around him. "Remember why we fight. We fight for our families, for our friends, for our home. Let's show the world that even in darkness, we can find light." The warriors nodded, their spirits lifted by Syrian's words. They stood taller, ready to face the challenge ahead. Ayra placed a hand on his shoulder, a reassuring touch that grounded him. "You're doing this, Syrian. You're choosing the right path." As they moved into position, Syrian felt his heart race. The enemy was approaching, shadows moving closer across the battlefield. He focused on the faces around him, drawing strength from their resolve. When the battle began, Syrian fought with all his might. He dodged and parried, using his skills to protect those beside him. And when the enemy came too close, instead of summoning flames to incinerate, he raised his hands to shield his allies. "Stay together," he shouted, guiding the group with his voice. "We can do this." Ayra fought beside him, her healing skills evident as she tended to those who fell. "Syrian," she called out, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We need to focus on their leader. That's where the heart of the conspiracy lies." He nodded, his eyes locking onto the figure at the center of the enemy ranks. "Let's go." Together, they pushed through the throng, their determination unwavering. As they reached the leader, Syrian felt a rush of emotions. The figure before him was not just an enemy. He represented everything Syrian had lost. But this time, he would not let fury consume him. "Your reign of terror ends here," Syrian shouted, standing tall. "We will not fight with hatred, but with the strength of our hearts." The leader sneered, ready to strike with dark magic. But Syrian held his ground, remembering Ayra's words. He focused on the energy around him, not to summon destruction, but to channel hope. In that moment, he realized that healing was not just for others, it was for himself as well. Syrian embraced his past, the pain and the fire, and transformed it into a shield of protection for those he cared about. "Together!" Ayra shouted, joining him. "Together, we are stronger!" With their combined strength, they faced the enemy, not as individuals, but as a united force. It was a choice of redemption, a choice to heal rather than harm. And as they stood side by side, Syrian knew that this was just the beginning of their new path. The sun began to rise over the battlefield, casting a golden hue on the debris that scattered the ground. Syrian stood at the front lines, his heart racing as he looked at the faces of his companions. Each one of them had their own story, their own pain, but today they united for a common cause. They would fight not just for revenge, but for the chance to restore peace to the kingdom. "Are you ready?" Ayra asked, her voice steady despite the tremble in her hands. She stood beside him, her healing staff glowing softly, a reminder of her power. Syrian nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. "We have to show them that hope is stronger than fear," he replied, his eyes scanning the horizon for the enemy that had caused so much suffering. As the signal to charge echoed through the air, Syrian concentrated. He could feel the flames within him, but this time they were not fueled by rage. They were a part of him, a force he could control. With a deep breath, he raised his hands, and flames danced around him, shimmering with a golden light. "Follow me," he shouted, leading the charge. The sound of clashing weapons and the cries of battle rose around them, but Syrian's heart was focused. He was not just fighting for himself, he was fighting for Ayra, for the friends they had lost, and for a future free from darkness. As they clashed with the conspirators, Syrian fought side by side with Ayra. She moved gracefully, healing allies who fell and fighting fiercely against those who threatened their group. "Keep pushing forward," she yelled, her voice filled with determination. Syrian felt his spirit lift with each victory, but he also felt the shadows of his past creeping in. A moment of doubt flickered in his mind. What if he lost control again? What if he hurt someone he loved? He shook his head, dispelling the thoughts. "I will not let fear take me," he declared to himself, his flames brightening, as if in response to his resolve. Each time he struck down an enemy, he felt lighter, as if he was shedding the weight of his guilt. In the midst of the chaos, Syrian caught sight of a familiar face among the enemy ranks. It was one of the conspirators, the one who had orchestrated the fire that changed his life forever. Rage surged through him, but he remembered Ayra's words. "Strength lies in compassion." With a deep breath, he redirected his energy. Instead of unleashing a torrent of flames, he summoned a wall of fire around himself, a barrier that protected his allies. "I won't fight with anger. I will protect," he shouted, feeling the fire become a shield rather than a weapon. Ayra appeared at his side, her expression fierce. "You're doing it, Syrian. You're turning your pain into strength." The battle raged on, and as Syrian faced the conspirator, he felt a wave of calm wash over him. "You took everything from me," he said, his voice steady, "but I will not let you take my future." The conspirator laughed mockingly. "You think you can change? You're just a monster." Syrian's flames flickered, but he stood tall. "I am not a monster. I am a protector." With that, he unleashed a burst of fire that surrounded the conspirator, not to harm, but to bind him, preventing any further violence. As the battle reached its climax, Syrian felt the struggles within him begin to fade. He had accepted his past. He had transformed his flames into a force of protection and hope. The tide of the battle turned, and his allies rallied around him, inspired by his courage. "Together!" Ayra shouted, rallying everyone with her powerful voice. With their unified strength, they pushed the enemies back, reclaiming their land inch by inch. Syrian fought alongside Ayra and their friends, each victory a step toward healing. As the last enemy fell, the battlefield fell silent. Syrian looked around at his companions, their faces weary but filled with hope. They had fought together and emerged stronger. Ayra turned to him, her eyes shining. "You did it, Syrian. You found a way to fight for what matters." Syrian smiled, the weight of his past lifting. "No, we did it. Together." In that moment, amidst the rubble and the remnants of battle, Syrian understood the true power of forgiveness, not just for those who had wronged him, but for himself. He could finally see a future where he could embrace peace and hope, leaving his past behind. The sun began to rise over the battered kingdom, casting a warm light on the scars left by the recent battle. Syrian and Ayra stood side by side on a hill overlooking the town, their hearts heavy with the weight of their shared experiences. The sounds of rebuilding filled the air, mixed with the quiet whispers of hope. "We did it," Syrian said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. He looked at Ayra, his eyes reflecting both relief and uncertainty. Ayra nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Yes, but the journey is far from over. We need to help our people heal." Her words were filled with determination, a spark ignited by their victory. As they walked down the hill, the remnants of the battle lay scattered around them. Buildings stood charred, but life was beginning to return. Children laughed in the distance, their innocent joy a stark contrast to the pain that lingered in the air. Syrian paused, his heart aching at the sight. "I never wanted to be a protector, Ayra. I was afraid of what my fire could do. I thought it only brought destruction." Ayra placed a gentle hand on his arm. "But you have learned to control it. You have turned your pain into strength. You can help others find their way just as you have." Her voice was soothing, like a balm on his weary soul. Together, they reached the center of town, where people gathered to share stories and support one another. Syrian felt a warmth spread through him as he saw familiar faces. The townspeople smiled at him, gratitude shining in their eyes. "Syrian!" called a voice from the crowd. It was an elder, his face lined with age and wisdom. "You fought bravely. We owe you our lives." Syrian felt a rush of emotion at the elder's words. "I only did what I had to do. We all fought together," he replied humbly. Ayra stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. "We can rebuild, but we must do it together. Each of us has our own scars, but those scars can remind us of our strength." The crowd nodded, and Syrian felt a sense of belonging. He had once believed he was an outcast, but now he stood among friends. As the days passed, Syrian and Ayra worked tirelessly. They visited every corner of the kingdom, helping those in need. Syrian used his fire to light the way for others, creating warmth and comfort instead of destruction. One evening, after a long day of work, they sat together by a fire in the center of town. The flames danced, and Syrian watched them, feeling a sense of peace. "Do you remember the first time we met?" he asked, a smile creeping onto his face. "I was a mess, and you scared me with your confidence." Ayra laughed, her eyes sparkling. "You were lost, but you found your way. And now, look at you. You are a true leader." The warmth from the fire felt different now. It was not just a reminder of his past mistakes, it was a symbol of hope and healing. Syrian turned to Ayra, his heart full. "I could not have done this without you. You showed me that there is strength in vulnerability. You taught me that fire can heal." Ayra smiled brightly, her voice gentle. "And you taught me that it's okay to embrace our past. We can take our experiences and turn them into something beautiful." As night fell, the stars twinkled above them, a reminder of the battles they had fought and the journey still ahead. They knew that the scars would always remain, but together they could continue to heal and inspire others. "Let's keep building this community," Syrian said, determination filling his voice. "Let's show them that even those marked by darkness can rise to become symbols of light and hope." Ayra nodded, her spirit unyielding. "Yes, together we will create a new dawn for our kingdom." With a shared purpose, they looked toward the future, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Share this story if you believe that hope and resilience can transform even the darkest moments into light. Leave a comment about a time when you found strength in vulnerability, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring tales like this one.